She didn't scream, not when they ripped the only thing she depended on out of her life. She didn't cry, not when the men dragged that massive dog away in broad daylight. Her body just shook, silent, broken. And the man who caused it? He stood there, smiling. What he didn't know was that just a few blocks away, a man was watching. A man who didn't forgive. A man who didn't forget. And before the sun set, someone was going to pay for making a little girl feel that kind of pain. If stories like this move you, take a second to subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next. It was still dark when Briar Holloway opened her eyes. No alarm clock needed. Her body had learned the price of 5 extra minutes. 5 minutes late meant missing the bus. Missing the bus meant losing her shift. And losing her shift meant no rent, no food, no future. So she woke up. Every day. At the same time. Without fail. The apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from exhaustion, not peace. Her bare feet touched the cold floor, and before she even stood up straight, she heard it. Breathing. Deep. Slow. Steady. Right there in the hallway, between her and her daughter's room, lay a massive body of muscle and fur. Brutus. 65 kilos of pure strength, and not a single ounce of danger toward the people he loved. He didn't move when Briar stepped over him, but his ears shifted slightly, tracking her like he always did. He was always awake, even when he looked asleep. The kitchen light flickered twice before it finally came on. She opened the fridge. Everything inside was measured. Calculated. Milk, 4 days left. Eggs, 6. Cheese, sliced carefully, portioned like a survival plan. There was no extra food in this house. There was no room for mistakes. She poured herself cheap coffee, the kind that tasted like regret. But to her daughter, that smell meant something else. It meant, Mom is here. It meant, everything is okay. Briar picked up the cup, then walked into the bedroom. Posey was already awake. 6 years old, small, fragile. Her legs resting still beneath the blanket like they didn't belong to her. Her gray-blue eyes stared at the ceiling, quiet, thoughtful, like a child who had already seen too much. Before Briar could say a word, Brutus was already moving. No one told him. No one trained him. He just knew. He walked into the room, lowered his massive head, and gently pushed the wheelchair closer to the bed. Every morning. Without fail. Briar lifted Posey carefully, like she always did, dressed her, tied her hair back. Every movement precise. No wasted time. Because their life didn't allow wasted time. When the wheelchair rolled forward, Posey's left hand rested on Brutus's head. Not to pet him. To feel him. That was her connection to the world. The vibrations from his steps traveled through the chair, into her hand, into her bones. That's how she knew she wasn't alone. Outside, the city was waking up. But Posey didn't see the world the way other kids did. She saw shoes, feet, shadows moving past her. She recognized people by how they walked, how they sounded, how they smelled. The woman at the vegetable shop, soft slippers, always smelling like basil, always placing a free apple in her hand. The old man on the corner, heavy boots, cigarette smoke. The paper boy, fast footsteps, breathless. And always, always, beside her, Brutus, walking slowly, carefully, matching her pace like her life depended on it. Because it did. To anyone else, he looked terrifying. Wrinkled face, massive body, drool hanging from his mouth. But to Posey? He was beautiful. He didn't pity her. He didn't see what she couldn't do. He just stayed. That morning felt like every other morning. Ordinary. Quiet. Safe. And sometimes, That's the most dangerous kind of peace. Because you don't see it coming. Later that day, Briar stood in the diner kitchen, flipping eggs on a sizzling pan, when Mrs. Pham leaned in close beside her. "Some guy came asking about you yesterday," she said quietly. Briar didn't look up. Blonde. Smiled too much. Asked where you live, what shifts you work, and about that big dog of yours. The pan in Briar's hand tightened. Her fingers turned white. Because her body remembered, before her mind did. That smile. That voice. That hand. Resting lightly on her throat. Just enough to remind her it could close any time. 7 years had passed. And still, her body reacted like it was yesterday. That afternoon, she picked Posey up from school. Everything looked normal. Brutus stood beside the wheelchair, tail moving slowly when he saw her. And then Posey spoke. "Mama, there was a man watching today." Briar froze. What man? Posey thought for a moment. He was smiling, but not like people who like dogs. He looked at Brutus like something in a store. Briar didn't say anything, but something inside her chest dropped. That night, at exactly 9:15, there was a knock on the door. No one ever knocked on that door. No one. Briar walked slowly, her heartbeat rising with every step. She looked through the peephole, and the world she had spent 7 years trying to escape was standing right outside. Reed Gallagher, smiling, holding a small pink teddy bear, like he was a father who cared. And Briar knew, before she even opened the door, this wasn't a visit. This was the beginning of something much worse. And this time, he hadn't come back for her. He hadn't come back for her. He had come back for something else. Briar opened the door just enough to stand in the frame, her body blocking the entrance completely. Reed's smile didn't change. It never did. That was the thing about him. It stayed the same whether he was being sweet or cruel. "Bree," he said softly, like he had the right to say her name that way. "It's been a long time." Her voice came out flat. Controlled. "What do you want, Reed?" He held up the teddy bear slightly, as if that explained everything. "I just wanted to see my daughter." The word daughter felt wrong coming from him. Like a lie wearing clean clothes. "You don't have a daughter," Briar said quietly. "Not anymore." That smile flickered for half a second, just enough to show the truth underneath it. But then it came back. "I know I made mistakes," he said, stepping a little closer. "But I've changed." "People change, Bree. I have rights. The law. Don't." Her voice cut through him like a blade. "Don't talk to me about rights." For a moment, the hallway was silent. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded stack of papers. "Court documents," he said. "Petition for visitation. It's official." Briar didn't even need to read them. One glance, 1 second, and she knew. The stamp was off. The format was wrong. The whole thing smelled like cheap ink and desperation. "Fake," she said, handing them back without hesitation. "Get out." His jaw tightened. Not much, but enough. That mask was starting to crack. "You think you can just keep her from me forever?" he said, his voice lowering now, losing that sugary tone. "You think I don't have a say?" "You had your chance," Briar replied. "You walked away." His eyes shifted past her shoulder. And that's when he saw him. Brutus. Standing in the hallway. Still. Silent. Watching. The dog didn't growl. Didn't move. Didn't show his teeth. He just stood there, like a wall that couldn't be pushed through. Reed's smile thinned. Just a little. But Briar saw it. He hadn't planned for that. "Nice dog," he muttered. "Must be worth a lot." And there it was. The truth. Briar felt it hit her chest like a stone. "You're not here for her," she said slowly. "You're here for him." Reed didn't deny it. Didn't even try. He just shrugged slightly, like it wasn't a big deal. "I'm here to take what's mine." The words hung in the air. Cold. Heavy. Briar stepped forward and slammed the door shut in his face. Locked it. Then locked it again. Her hands trembled, but she forced them still. From the other side of the door, his footsteps echoed down the hallway. Slow. Unhurried. Like he wasn't leaving, just waiting. Then his voice came back up through the stairwell. No sweetness. No mask. Just the real him. "Next time. I won't knock." The silence that followed was worse than the threat. Briar stood there for a few seconds, her back against the door, her breath uneven. Then her legs gave out. She slid down onto the cold floor. She didn't cry. She hadn't cried for him in years. But her body still remembered. The fear. The helplessness. The nights she thought she wouldn't survive. And she hated it. Hated that after everything, he could still make her feel this small. A heavy weight pressed against her lap. Brutus. He had come to her, quietly, like he always did. His massive head rested there, warm, steady, real. Briar placed her hand on him. And slowly, her breathing steadied. "I have no one," she whispered under her breath. But even as she said it, something inside her resisted the words. Because she wasn't completely alone. Not really. 2 days passed. And for a moment, it almost felt like maybe he had given up. Maybe he had disappeared again, the way he did before. But people like Reed didn't disappear. They waited. That afternoon, Briar picked Posey up from school just like always. The sun was still high, the street full of movement, life going on like nothing had changed. Brutus walked beside the wheelchair, his shoulder brushing the frame. Everything looked normal. Until it didn't. Posey's hand rested on Brutus's head. And suddenly, she felt it. The shift. The muscles beneath his fur tightened. His steps changed. Shorter. Sharper. Alert. Her fingers pressed slightly against his head, reading him the way she always did. "Something's wrong." "Mama," she said softly. But Briar had already seen it. 3 men. Standing ahead at the intersection. Not walking. Not waiting. Watching. One of them stepped forward. And even though Briar had never met him before, she knew exactly who he was. The same eyes. The same shape of his face. Just younger. Troy Gallagher. Everything happened fast. Too fast. One of the men grabbed the wheelchair handles and yanked them back. Briar was shoved sideways, her body hitting the pavement hard, pain shooting through her shoulder. "Hey!" she shouted, scrambling to get up. Brutus moved instantly. A deep growl ripped from his chest, something primal, something dangerous. He lunged. His teeth caught fabric, then flesh. Troy screamed. But the next second, a metal pipe swung through the air. It connected with Brutus's hip. The sound. It wasn't loud. But it was wrong. The kind of sound you feel in your bones. Brutus cried out. Not a bark. Not a growl. A cry. And Posey felt it. Through the chair. Through the ground. Through everything. Her body started trembling. Violently. Silently. Her fingers gripped the metal frame, but there was no warmth beneath her hand anymore. No movement. No steady rhythm. Just emptiness. The van door slammed. The engine roared. And then, they were gone. Just like that. Briar crawled to Posey, her knee bleeding, her hands shaking. She wrapped her arms around her daughter, holding her tight. "It's okay, it's okay," she whispered, even though nothing was okay. The street kept moving. People looked, then looked away. Someone asked if she needed help. She said no. Because what help could anyone give? Her phone was in her hand. She called the police. It rang, and rang, and rang. Then a hold music. 45 seconds. 45 seconds while her daughter shook in her arms, while the only thing holding their world together had just been taken. She hung up. Her contact list was empty. No one to call. No one to ask. No one. She sat there on the sidewalk, holding Posey, feeling the weight of that truth crash down on her. And for the first time in years, Briar didn't know what to do next. But somewhere, not far away, a phone had just started ringing. But somewhere, not far away, a phone had just started ringing. The call lasted less than 15 seconds. No greetings. No questions. Just a voice on the other end, calm, controlled, but carrying something sharp beneath it. They took the dog. Corner of 5th. 3 men. White van heading east. A pause. Then one sentence. "I'm on my way." The line went dead. Back on the sidewalk, Briar tightened her hold on Posey, rocking her slightly, trying to calm the trembling that wouldn't stop. "It's okay, baby. I'm here," she whispered, even though her own voice felt hollow. Posey didn't answer. Her fingers were still clenched tight, like she was holding on to something that wasn't there anymore. That absence, that missing weight beneath her hand, it was louder than any scream. Briar swallowed hard. She couldn't sit here. She couldn't just wait. She forced herself up, wincing as her knee protested, then grabbed the handles of the wheelchair. "Come on," she said softly. "We're going home." But before she could take even one step, a car pulled up beside the curb. Fast. Too fast for someone just looking for parking. The engine barely had time to settle before the door opened. Briar froze. Her grip on the wheelchair tightened instantly. Because something about that movement, that presence, it didn't feel normal. The man who stepped out, she recognized him immediately. The same man from the building. The one sitting in the dark. The one whose hand she had bandaged. But he didn't look the same now. There was no shadow hiding him this time. No dim light softening the edges. Standing there in the open daylight, he looked different. Sharper. He walked toward them without hesitation. No rush. No panic. Just certainty. Briar's body tensed. Every instinct she had built over the years told her to be careful. To protect. To step back. But before she could say anything, he stopped right in front of Posey. And then, he did something no one else ever did. He lowered himself. One knee touching the pavement. Bringing himself down to her level. Not looking down at her. Looking across. Eye to eye. Posey's trembling slowed. Just a little. Not gone. But less. He didn't reach for her. Didn't crowd her. He simply took off his watch. It was heavy. Expensive. The kind of thing Briar had seen on rich men who didn't even notice what they were wearing. He placed it gently in Posey's hands. "My name is Damon," he said quietly. "Hold this for me." Posey looked down at it. Her small fingers wrapped around the cold metal. "Why?" she whispered. He met her eyes. "Because I don't leave my things behind." There was something in his voice. Not soft. Not kind. But steady. Certain. Posey's hands stopped shaking. Not completely. But enough. Briar noticed it immediately. Her eyes flicked between him and her daughter. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice cautious, guarded. Damon stood up slowly. And now, standing again, He felt different. Larger. Not in size. In presence. He looked at her. Direct. Unshaken. Where did they go? He asked. Briar hesitated. Every instinct told her not to trust him. But she didn't have options. White van heading east, she said quietly. He nodded once. Like that was all he needed. Then he looked back at Posey. You keep that safe, he said. I'll come back for it. Something about the way he said it. It didn't sound like a promise. It sounded like a fact. Briar crossed her arms slightly, still standing between him and her daughter. Why would you do this? She asked. Damon didn't answer right away. His eyes held hers. And for a moment, it felt like he was looking through her, not at her. Then he spoke. 7 years ago, you were in a police station. Pregnant. Bruised. Briar's breath caught. You said 3 words, he continued. You told them you didn't see anything. Her chest tightened. You remember that? She whispered. I never forgot it, he said. The silence stretched between them. Heavy. Unspoken things filling the space. I owe you, Damon added. Briar shook her head slightly. I didn't do that for you, she said. I didn't even know who you were. I know, he replied. That's why it matters. Before she could respond, another car pulled up behind him. A second man stepped out. Tall. Solid. Quiet. He didn't look at Briar or Posey. He looked at Damon. Waiting. Damon gave a small nod. Then turned back to Briar. You can't stay here, he said. Her expression hardened immediately. I'm not going anywhere with you. You're not going with me, he said calmly. You're going somewhere safe. I don't need. They know where you live. That stopped her. Just like that. Her mouth closed. Her thoughts froze. Because he was right. And she knew it. Damon glanced at Posey. Then back at her. They already came to your door once, he said. Next time, it won't be a conversation. The truth of that hit harder than anything else. Briar looked down at her daughter. Posey was still holding the watch. Still quiet, but no longer shaking. For the first time since the attack, there was a small sense of stillness around her. A fragile one, but real. Briar swallowed. What happens now? She asked. Damon didn't hesitate. I bring him back. Not if. Not maybe. Not we'll try. I bring him back. Simple. Certain. Like it was already done. Briar stared at him, trying to understand, trying to measure him. But he wasn't like anyone she had known before. There was no desperation in him. No doubt. No hesitation. Just control. And something else. Something she couldn't name. She looked at the second man standing by the car. Then back at Damon. You really think you can fix this? She asked quietly. Damon held her gaze. I don't think, he said. Another pause. Then, I know who took him. A chill ran through her. Because if he knew that, then this wasn't just help. This was something else entirely. Something deeper. Something already in motion. Briar took a slow breath. Then finally, she nodded. Not because she trusted him, but because she had run out of choices. And somewhere deep inside, she wanted to believe someone could actually bring Brutus back. Damon stepped back slightly. Gave a signal. The second man opened the rear door of the car. Briar moved the wheelchair forward. Slowly. Carefully. Her hands still trembling, but steady enough. As she helped Posey inside, her daughter looked up at her. Mama, she whispered. Briar leaned closer. What is it, baby? Posey held the watch tighter. "He's going to come back," she said softly. Briar's throat tightened. She didn't know if that was hope, or something else. But as she closed the car door, and watched Damon walk away toward his own vehicle, there was one thing she couldn't ignore. The way the air shifted when he moved. The way people didn't question him. The way everything around him seemed to fall into place. And for the first time, Briar realized something that made her heart beat a little faster. This man wasn't just helping her. He was already at war. And whoever took Brutus had no idea who they had just crossed. And whoever took Brutus had no idea who they had just crossed. The car door closed with a quiet, solid click. Briar sat beside Posey in the back seat, her hand resting lightly on her daughter's shoulder, as if letting go for even a second might cause everything to fall apart again. The man in the driver's seat didn't speak. He didn't ask questions. He simply started the engine and pulled away from the curb. Smooth. Controlled. Like this wasn't chaos. Just another step in a plan already set in motion. Briar glanced back through the rear window. Damon's car was already moving in the opposite direction. No hesitation. No delay. Straight into whatever was coming next. Her chest tightened. She didn't know why, but something about watching him leave like that felt heavy. Like she had just handed her entire life over to something she didn't understand. The ride was quiet. Not uncomfortable. Just full. Full of everything that had happened in the last hour. Posey sat still beside her, both hands wrapped around the watch. Her fingers traced the edges slowly, like she was memorizing it. Feeling it. Understanding it in her own way. "Does it feel heavy?" Briar asked softly. Posey nodded. "But good," she whispered. Briar swallowed. Good. That word felt fragile right now. Too fragile. The car slowed, then turned, then finally came to a stop in front of a house Briar had never seen before. Not huge. Not flashy. But solid. Clean. The kind of place that felt lived in. The driver stepped out first, came around, and opened the door for them. Still no words. Still no explanation. Briar hesitated for half a second, then helped Posey out. The front door opened before they even reached it. A woman stood there. Calm eyes. Steady hands. The kind of presence that didn't panic, didn't rush, just handled things. "Come in," she said simply. No questions. No confusion. Just space. Briar stepped inside. The air felt different. Warm. There was a faint smell of food, something cooked with care, something that didn't come from a microwave or a rushed evening. Posey noticed it too. Her eyes moved slowly around the room. "This place smells," she paused, searching for the right word. "Like people live here," she finished softly. Briar felt that hit somewhere deep inside her chest, because she understood exactly what her daughter meant. Not just a place to survive. A place to exist. The woman knelt in front of Briar almost immediately, her attention going straight to the blood on her knee. "You're hurt," she said. "It's nothing," Briar replied quickly. "It's not nothing," the woman said calmly, already reaching for a first aid kit. There was no argument in her voice. Just certainty. Briar didn't resist. Didn't have the energy to. She sat down. And for the first time since the street, someone took care of her. Not because they had to. Not because they were paid. Just because. The woman worked quickly, cleaning the wound, wrapping it. Her movements precise, practiced, like she had done this many times before. "What's your name?" Briar asked quietly. "Della," she replied. That was it. No more. No less. Della finished the bandage, stood up, and turned toward the kitchen. A moment later, she came back with a small bowl and a glass of warm milk. She placed them in front of Posey. "Eat," she said gently. Posey looked at the bowl, then at her. Then slowly, she nodded. She started eating. Small bites. Careful, but steady. Briar watched her, and something inside her chest loosened just a little, because her daughter wasn't shaking anymore. Not like before. Not like on the sidewalk. The watch was still in her left hand, even while she ate. Like she didn't want to let go of the one thing that felt certain. Briar leaned back slightly in the chair. Her body was starting to feel everything now. The pain. The exhaustion. The weight of the day finally settling in. And for the first time, she wasn't holding everything alone. But that thought scared her too. Because depending on someone, even a little, was something she had trained herself not to do. Across the room, the front door opened again. The driver stepped inside briefly, exchanged a quiet look with Della, then left again without saying a word. Briar noticed it. The way people moved here. The way things happened without being explained. This wasn't normal. This was something else. Something structured. Something controlled. She looked down at Posey. "How are you feeling?" she asked softly. Posey swallowed, then looked up at her. "I can still feel him," she said. Briar frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Posey touched the table with her free hand. "The ground, it's still quiet," she whispered. Briar's throat tightened. Because she understood. For Posey, Brutus wasn't just a dog. He was presence, movement, connection. And now, that connection was gone. The silence was loud. Briar reached over and brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "He's coming back," she said gently. Posey looked down at the watch again, then nodded. He said he would. Simple. Clear. No doubt. Children didn't question things the way adults did. They felt them, trusted them, or didn't. And right now, Posey believed him. Briar wished it were that easy for her. Time passed slowly. The house stayed quiet. No one rushed. No one panicked. It was like everything here existed on a different rhythm. A controlled one. Outside, the sun had already started to fade. Evening settling in. And somewhere out there, Damon was moving. Not searching. Not guessing. Moving with purpose. Toward something he already knew. Back inside the house. Briar sat still, her fingers lightly gripping the edge of the table. Her mind kept drifting back to one thing. The way he said it. "I bring him back." Not hope. Not comfort. A statement. A certainty. She didn't know if that should make her feel safe. Or terrified. Because men who spoke like that usually had the power to back it up. And the cost of that power was never small. Posey finished eating and leaned back slightly in her chair. Still holding the watch. Still quiet. Still waiting. Briar looked at her. Then toward the door. Listening. Hoping. Fearing. Because every passing minute felt longer than the last. And somewhere deep inside, a question kept growing. Not if he would find Brutus. But what would happen when he found the men who took him? But what would happen when he found the men who took him? Miles away, the city didn't feel the same. For most people, it was just another evening. Traffic lights changing. People heading home. Phones buzzing with ordinary problems. But for a few men, things had already started to shift. Reed Gallagher stood inside a small apartment, pacing. Back and forth. Back and forth. His phone was in his hand, but it might as well have been useless. He had already called 3 times. No answer. He called again. Still nothing. "Troy, pick up the damn phone," he muttered under his breath, his jaw tight. He stopped pacing for a second, staring at the screen like he could force it to respond. Nothing. He tried another number. This time, it rang longer. Then finally, a voice answered. "Yeah." Reed exhaled sharply. "Where are you?" A pause. "Why?" Troy replied, his tone already defensive. "Because I've been calling you for the last 10 minutes, Reed snapped. "Did you get it or not?" Another pause. Then a small laugh. "Relax." "Yeah, we got it." Reed closed his eyes briefly. Relief, but not fully. "Where is it?" he asked. "Warehouse," Troy said casually. "Same place. Guy's already lined up. Says he'll pay cash tonight." Reed nodded slowly, even though Troy couldn't see him. "Good," he said. "We get paid, we're done. I don't want any loose ends." Troy chuckled again. "It's just a dog, man." Reed's expression hardened. "No," he said quietly. "It's not just a dog." There was something else in his voice now. Something uneasy. He didn't understand it fully yet. But something didn't feel right. On the other end, Troy didn't notice. Or didn't care. "Whatever," Troy said. "You get your money. I get mine. Everybody wins." Reed didn't respond. Because somewhere deep inside, he knew that wasn't true anymore. The call ended. Reed stared at the phone again. Then slowly, he sat down. Something was off. He could feel it. Like a storm building, but too quiet to hear yet. He shook his head. "You're overthinking," he muttered to himself. "Money. That's all this was about. Get the money. Leave the city. Start over. Simple. That's how it worked. It always worked like that." But even as he told himself that, his hand tightened slightly around the phone. Back at the warehouse, the atmosphere was very different. Troy leaned against a table, his injured hand wrapped loosely in a dirty cloth. The bite still throbbed. Deep, sharp. That dog hadn't held back. "Stupid animal," he muttered, taking a sip from a bottle. Across from him, another man checked the lock on the cage. "Thing's not moving much," he said. "You hit it pretty hard." Troy shrugged. Didn't have a choice. But even as he said it, he glanced toward the corner. Brutus lay inside the cage. Still. Quiet. Watching. Not barking. Not growling. Just watching. There was something unsettling about it. A dog that size, after being taken, hurt, should have been losing its mind. But this one wasn't. It was calm. Too calm. Like it wasn't scared. Like it was waiting. Troy shifted slightly. "Why's it looking at me like that?" he muttered. The other man snorted. "It's a dog." Troy didn't answer. Because it didn't feel like just a dog. Not the way it held eye contact. Not the way it didn't react. He looked away first. And that annoyed him. He took another drink. "Buyer coming at 8, he said. "We get paid, we're gone." "Good," the other man replied. "I don't like keeping these things around." Brutus didn't move. But his eyes followed every motion. Every step, every sound. The air inside that warehouse felt heavy, like something unseen had already entered, and was just waiting for the right moment. Outside, a car slowed at the end of the street. Didn't pull in. Didn't make noise. Just stopped. Inside, Troy didn't notice. He was too busy talking. Too busy thinking about money. About leaving. About what came next. He didn't realize that next had already arrived. Back at the house. Briar sat exactly where she had been. Her hands resting together now, fingers intertwined tightly. Waiting. Every sound outside made her look up. Every passing car. Every footstep. But none of them were him. Posey hadn't moved much either. She sat quietly, the watch still held close. But her head tilted slightly. Listening. Feeling. Like she was trying to catch something the rest of the world couldn't hear. Briar noticed. "What is it?" she asked softly. Posey didn't answer right away. Her fingers tapped lightly against the table. Once. Twice. Then she whispered, "It's coming back." Briar leaned closer. "What is?" Posey looked down. Then back up. The sound. A pause. "It's not here yet, but it's close." Briar's heart skipped. She didn't know whether to believe that, or be afraid of it. Because if Posey could feel something returning, that meant something was happening. Right now. Somewhere. And whatever it wasn't small. Across the city. The warehouse door creaked slightly. Just a small sound. Barely noticeable. But enough. Brutus's ears shifted. His body didn't move. But something in him changed. That calm, sharpened, focused. Troy didn't hear it. He was still talking, still distracted, still unaware. The man near the cage turned his head slightly. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Troy frowned. "Hear what?" The man stepped toward the door. Slowly, carefully. The silence inside the warehouse deepened. Thicker. He reached out, his hand hovering near the handle. Then, he pulled it open, and froze. Because standing in the doorway was a man who didn't need to say a single word to be understood. Damon stepped inside. Come. Unrushed. Like he had all the time in the world. Behind him, the street was empty. Quiet. But something about the way he entered that space made it feel like the entire world had just shifted. Troy straightened slightly, his expression tightening. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. Damon didn't answer. His eyes moved past them, straight to the cage, to Brutus. And for the first time since they took him, the dog moved. Slowly, carefully, rising to his feet. And in that moment, Troy felt something he hadn't felt before. Not fear. Not yet. But something close to it. Because the man standing in front of him wasn't there to talk. And somehow, deep down, he already knew that. Because the man standing in front of him wasn't there to talk. The air inside the warehouse shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough for every instinct in that room to realize something had changed. Damon took one step forward. Slow. Measured. His shoes echoed softly against the concrete floor. Troy's grip tightened around the bottle in his hand. "Hey," he said again, louder this time. "I asked you something." No response. Damon didn't even look at him. His eyes stayed on the cage. On Brutus. The dog stood still, his weight slightly uneven from the injury, but his posture steady, alert, recognizing. There was a quiet moment between them. A strange one. Like two beings understanding something without needing words. Troy glanced at the other man. "Say something," he muttered under his breath. The man near the door didn't move. Didn't speak. Because something about Damon made speaking feel unnecessary. Or dangerous. Finally, Troy stepped forward. A little more force in his movement now. "Listen, man," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This ain't your business. You should turn around and walk out while you still can." Damon stopped. Not because of Troy. but because he had reached the middle of the space. He stood there, centered, still. Then slowly, he looked up. His eyes met Troy's. And whatever Troy expected to see, it wasn't that. No anger, no shouting, no visible threat, just calm. The kind of calm that didn't belong in a place like this. "Open the cage," Damon said. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Troy let out a short laugh. "You serious right now?" No answer. Just silence. And that silence pressed down harder than any threat. Troy shifted his weight. "Look, I don't know who you think you are," he said, his tone starting to crack slightly, "but this dog's already sold. You're late." Damon tilted his head just a fraction. "Open the cage," he repeated. Same tone. Same calm. Like the outcome had already been decided. The other man swallowed. "You should leave," he said, quieter now. Damon didn't even glance at him. Instead, he took another step. Closer. That's when Troy moved. Fast. He grabbed the metal pipe from the table and stepped forward, raising it slightly. "Don't take another step," he snapped. For a moment, everything froze. The distance between them. The tension. The air itself. Damon looked at the pipe. Then back at Troy. "You used that on him," he said. Not a question. A statement. Troy didn't answer. Didn't need to. Damon already knew. Another step. Closer now. Troy swung. It wasn't a clean strike. Not controlled. Just reaction. Fear hiding behind aggression. The pipe cut through the air. But it never landed. Damon moved. Fast. Precise. His hand caught Troy's wrist mid-swing. Stopped it like it weighed nothing. Troy's eyes widened. "What?" The words didn't finish. Because Damon's grip tightened. Just enough. Not to break. Not yet. But enough to make a point. The pipe dropped from Troy's hand, clattering against the floor. The sound echoed. Loud in the silence. Damon let go. Stepped back. Like that moment hadn't even mattered. Like it wasn't worth holding onto. Troy stumbled slightly, clutching his wrist. Now there was fear. Real fear. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped, but his voice wasn't steady anymore. Damon didn't respond. He turned. Walked past him. Straight to the cage. The other man stepped back without even thinking. Giving space. Not out of respect. Out of instinct. Damon crouched down. Slowly. Carefully. He reached for the lock. His fingers moved with precision. No rush. No hesitation. The chain clicked open. Metal sliding against metal. Loud in the quiet. Then he reached for the muzzle. Unfastened it. One strap at a time. Brutus didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just watched. When the last strap came loose, Damon paused. Just for a second. Then gently, he pulled it away. The dog's jaw relaxed. Free. Still no movement. Just breath. Steady. Damon's hand hovered near the dog's neck. Not touching yet. Waiting. Brutus leaned forward slightly. His nose brushing against Damon's bandaged hand. He inhaled. Slow. Deep. Recognizing something. Not the man. But the scent. Briar. It lingered there. Faint. But enough. The connection clicked. Brutus's tail moved once. Heavy. Certain. Damon's hand lowered, resting lightly against his neck. No force. No command. Just contact. "Let's go," he said quietly. Brutus shifted his weight, carefully stepping out of the cage. His injured side slowed him, but it didn't stop him. He didn't look at Troy. didn't look at the other man. He walked straight toward the door, like he already knew where he needed to be. Damon stood, turned, and only then he looked at Troy again. That same calm expression. But now, there was something colder beneath it. "You're done here," he said. Troy laughed nervously. "Yeah? Says who?" Damon didn't answer. He didn't need to, because in that moment, Troy understood something. Not fully, not clearly, but enough. This wasn't over. This wasn't just about the dog. This was something bigger. Something already closing in. Damon walked toward the exit, Brutus ahead of him. Each step slow, steady, unshaken. The other man didn't move. Didn't try to stop him. Didn't even think about it. Because something deep inside told him that would be a mistake he wouldn't walk away from. Troy stayed where he was, breathing harder now, watching them go, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But the more he thought about it, the worse it felt, because nothing about that encounter felt normal. Not the way Damon moved, not the way he spoke, not the way he didn't react. It felt like he had already lost something, and just hadn't realized it yet. Outside, the evening air felt colder, quieter. Brutus stepped onto the street, paused, then turned. Without being told, without being guided, he started walking. One direction, clear, certain, home. Damon followed a few steps behind. Hands relaxed at his sides, eyes steady, no rush, no urgency, because the first part was already done. Behind them, the warehouse door remained open. Troy stood there, staring at the empty cage, his chest rising and falling unevenly, and for the first time that day, a thought settled into his mind. Not loud, not sharp, but heavy. This wasn't finished. And whatever came next wasn't going to be about money anymore. And whatever came next wasn't going to be about money anymore. Troy stood there in the doorway long after the sound of footsteps faded into the distance. The warehouse felt different now. Empty, but not quiet, because something had been left behind. Not the dog. Something worse. A feeling, like the walls themselves were closing in. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He grabbed it quickly. Reed. What? Troy snapped. On the other end, Reed didn't speak right away. Troy, where's the dog? A pause. Troy swallowed. Gone. Silence. What do you mean gone? Reed's voice sharpened. He just walked in, Troy said, his voice tightening. Some guy took it. What guy? Troy hesitated. He didn't have a name. Didn't have an explanation. Just a feeling. I don't know, he muttered. But it's not done, Reed. Something's not right. Reed didn't respond. But for the first time since this started, he felt it too. That same pressure. That same invisible weight tightening around everything. You should leave, Troy added quietly. Now. The call ended. Reed sat still. For once, not moving. Not thinking about money. Not thinking about escape. Because something in his chest told him it was already too late. Back at the house. The sound came first. Soft. Faint. But real. Posey's fingers pressed against the table. Her breath caught. He's here, she whispered. Briar stood up instantly. Her heart racing. She didn't wait. Didn't think. She moved toward the door just as it opened. And there he was. Brutus. Standing in the doorway. Slightly uneven. A little slower. But there. Alive. Whole. Home. For a second, no one moved, like the moment needed time to exist before it could be touched. Then Posey's hands reached out. Brutus walked straight to her, lowered his head gently into her lap, exactly where it belonged. Her fingers buried into his fur, her face pressed against his neck. And this time, she didn't stay silent. A small sound escaped her. Soft, broken, relieved. And Briar broke too. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. Because sometimes the strongest people don't cry when things are taken from them. They cry when those things come back. Damon stood in the doorway, not stepping in, not interrupting, just watching. His eyes softer now, just for a moment, like something inside him had shifted, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Briar turned toward him, slowly, her voice barely steady. You actually brought him back." Damon nodded once. "I said I would. Simple. No pride. No explanation. Just truth." Briar looked at him differently now. Not as a stranger. Not as a risk. But as something else. Something she didn't fully understand yet. But something she couldn't ignore. Posey lifted her head slightly, still holding on to Brutus. She looked toward Damon. Then carefully, she extended her hand, the one holding the watch. He stepped forward this time, took it back gently. Their fingers touched for a brief second, and Posey smiled. Small, but real. "You came back," she said. Damon looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, there was something close to warmth in his eyes. "I told you," he replied. That night, everything felt different. Not perfect, not magically fixed, but steadier. Like something that had almost broken had been held together just in time. Days passed, and the storm that had started didn't fade. It ended. Reed was taken in, not just for what he did now, but for everything he had buried before. The lies, the violence, the damage he thought no one would ever bring back to the surface. It all came out, piece by piece. And for the first time, he had no control over the outcome. Troy disappeared from the city. No one went looking for him. Because some people run, and some people stay and face what they've done. Reed wasn't given that choice anymore. Justice didn't come loudly. It came quietly. But it came. And in the weeks that followed, life began to change. Slowly. Carefully. Briar didn't notice it at first, because she had spent so many years surviving. She didn't know how to recognize when things were getting better. But Posey did. She noticed the little things. The new wheelchair. Lighter. Smoother. Easier for Brutus. The kitchen that smelled like real food. The nights that felt less heavy. And Damon. He didn't force himself into their lives. He didn't demand anything. He just stayed. Showed up. Sat at the table. Listened. Helped without making it feel like help. And over time, the distance between them changed. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Like trust rebuilding itself slowly. One evening, Briar stood on the balcony. The city quiet beneath her. Damon stood beside her. Not too close. Not too far. "Why?" she asked again. He looked out at the lights, then spoke. "Because you helped me once, when you didn't have to." Briar shook her head slightly. "That wasn't help," she said. "I was just trying to survive." Damon glanced at her. Exactly. She didn't understand at first. But then, slowly, she did. Because kindness doesn't come from having everything. It comes from having nothing, and still choosing to give. Briar looked back at the city, then down at her hands, and for the first time in years, they weren't shaking. I spent so long thinking I had no one, she said quietly. Damon didn't answer. He didn't need to, because across the room, Posey laughed softly, Brutus beside her, and for the first time, that sentence wasn't true anymore. The emotional truth settled in that moment. Sometimes, the people who save us don't arrive like heroes. They arrive quietly, step into our broken world, and simply refuse to leave. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from.